Hello Booktube, hello everyone. My name is Paul and today I am going to do the top 10s book tag. I was tagged to do this by Jason at Old Blues Chapter and Verse, and I was absolutely delighted to be tagged because this is a great question. You know, to ask someone to pick their 10 favourite books is quite something. So it was an agonising choice. But just to explain before I get into the tag, the criteria that I used to pick these books was quite simple. Because what makes a great book for me is something that has stayed with you over the course of time. A lot of these books I read a long time ago, and the stories are etched in my mind. The messages are etched in my mind, and to me that's what makes a great book. Books that have moved me emotionally, that have meant something to me and have stood the course of time very well. So without wanting to make this video too long-winded, I'm just going to run through the 10 books just now and quite briefly. But so the first book, number 10, is Just After Sunset by Stephen King. This is a book of short stories, and I had to put it as number 10 because it's really just one short story in the collection that has stuck in my mind, and it's the first story, a story called Willa. And it's very difficult to go into the story without spoiling it, so I'm not going to do that. But it's such a powerful story. It has stayed with me for such a long time. I mean, I don't know when I read it for the first time, but it just blew my mind. I mean, loosely it's about a couple who, along with a group of other people, are waiting for a train to come and collect them, and they discover something about themselves in the course of the events of the story, and it's just wonderful. You know, it just really, as I say, it just really it blew my mind. So well, the rest of the collection is, I don't remember the other stories in the book, but that first one stayed with me and I absolutely loved it. And so for me, on the strength of that first short story alone, it deserves to be in my top 10. And I think that gives you an idea of just how strong that first story was, so I recommend reading it. Great book, great story. So that's number 10. Number 9 is a book that I don't currently have a copy of. Now, if I had good editing software and a laptop that didn't take a fortnight to do anything, I would put a picture of it here, but I don't, so I'll just tell you about it. It's Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. I just love that book. It was just such a... I find Agatha Christie such a neat and tidy writer. The story just falls into place, and I absolutely loved that story, Murder on the Orient Express. So that's number 9. Number 8 is The Lucifer Effect by Phillip Zimbardo. This, I have a background in psychology, and this book is one of the ones that really opened my mind to human nature. What circumstances can be present in order to make a good, decent person do bad things. And it just really opened a door in my mind in terms of understanding human nature. I'm not going to go too deeply into the book. I mean, maybe I can talk about it in a later video, but yeah, the Lucifer effect, how good people turn evil, extremely interesting read. So that is number 8. Number 7 on the list is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Another great book in my opinion. I actually find it very touching, and something that sticks in my mind about this book, which I don't think, I've listened to other people talk about Frankenstein and they haven't really discussed this aspect of it. But after, and I suppose I should warn people, this is partly a spoiler, but I just really want to mention this part of the story. And it's the fact that after Frankenstein's monster was created, he actually wasn't bad. And he had this need and this desire to connect with people. But because of his appearance, because of the way he was rejected by people, rejected by society, and that's when he turned into a more monstrous kind of being and started to cause a lot of damage. And that really moved me actually, that part of the story, and it's one of the main reasons why I love this book so much. But and it's actually just very chilling. Absolutely loved Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I actually have Mary Shelley's biography sitting on the table here, and that I picked up in a charity shop. I'll show you briefly. This is not part of the top 10, but there she is, Mary Shelley. I'm going to have to get into that biography very soon. So anyway, on with the tag. The next book, which is going to be number 6 on the list. I hope I'm keeping my numbers right here. But it's Charles Dickens. Sorry, it's Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. Absolutely love Charles Dickens. I've read most of his works. And this book again just really, the story stayed with me, it stuck with me. And I suppose one thing about Charles Dickens is, it reminds me of there was an interview with the old time movie actor Jimmy Stewart, and he was asked the question about what makes a great movie. What is it that separates a great movie from the rest? And he said something along the lines of, well, yes, you've got the story, you've got the cinematic work, etc., but you have to create great moments, memorable moments in the movie that people can relate to and that they can connect with. And I think Charles Dickens is the master of that. I mean, Charles Dickens is an author that, you know, I stop reading halfway through a page just to, you know, stop and smile to myself about the way that he's written a certain passage or described a certain scene, and it's great. So yeah, Great Expectations, Charles Dickens, one of my favourites. Now I'm on to number 5. This was a book I spoke about in my very first video briefly, and it's the Art of Happiness by Howard Cutler and the Dalai Lama. This book has helped me so much. Again, this is one that really opened windows in my mind to how to live in a much healthier way in terms of my mental health, and, you know, how to be happier, how to be more content. You know, it just, and what more can a book give you than that? It's I would go as far as to say it's a bit of a life changer. But yeah, The Art of Happiness. The next one on the list, number 4, is Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. This was a book that was recommended to me by a friend, and I was intrigued by what she told me about the story, and it's just fantastic. It's a wonderful plot. It kept me hooked. It's, as many people will already know, it is a large book. It's just over 1,000 pages long, but it says just on the top there, a classic masterpiece, and it really is a classic masterpiece. It's an amazing work. I haven't read anything else by Ken Follett. I really need to, but this is an amazing book. The next one on the list is another one that I don't have a personal copy of, but it's Charles Dickens again, and it's The Old Curiosity Shop. Now, it's not a book that tops the list of many Charles Dickens fans, but I absolutely loved it. It just, again, it's one that just is stamped in my mind and is not going to leave me. You know, the trials and tribulations of the young child and her grandfather, and how they survive through hard times, and they've got this long journey to go on to try and make their escape and find a more peaceful place in their life. And it just, yeah, I mean, that book to me had everything. You know, it made me laugh. The tragedy of it touched me. The adventure of it was exciting, and yeah, so that's The Old Curiosity Shop, Charles Dickens. Number 2 is a very special book, and it's Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. This is such a special book, and it's one of the rare ones that I've reread. I've read this 3 or 4 times, and the first half of the book goes into his experiences when he was a prisoner in World War II in the concentration camps, and he's Jewish, of course, and while he was in the concentration camp he developed a psychological theory, a way of coping. He's a psychiatrist by trade, and in the second half of the book he goes into the theory, the logo therapy as he calls it, and how it's been developed and how it's used to treat people and help people who are in mental distress. And it's really about putting meaning into a situation. If you can find a reason to go on, if you can find that goal, that reason for living, then you can find a way of living, and you can find a way past any situation that you're in, pretty much, if you have a reason to go on and a focus. That's putting it, you know, far too simply, but that's basically what the theory rests on. And it's just a wonderful book, and the first half of the book, where he talks about his experiences in the concentration camps, it's just, like many stories that have come from that side of the war, it is incredibly touching, incredibly moving, and incredibly inspiring. So that's Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And the final book, the number 1 book for me, is Mary Queen of Scots by Antonia Fraser. Absolutely wonderful book. For some reason the Mary Queen of Scots story has really got into me. It's again, it's another story, a real life story that has everything. It has tragedy, it has romance, it has adventure. This young woman that had to survive and thrive in a world dominated by men, and the courage that she had to show. And I was about to say this is a spoiler, but you know, anyone that picks up this book probably already knows the story, but you know, in the end, of course, she's in prison for 19 years, and that's ended by her execution. And the days and weeks leading up to that execution, the days before her death, when she knew what was before her, just incredible. It's probably the most moving thing that I've ever read. You know, the courage, the dignity that she showed when she was coming into her final days. It's just really an amazing story. So, Mary Queen of Scots by Antonia Fraser. Absolutely incredible book. So that is my top 10 books. I hope you enjoyed listening to the list. I'm a little bit stuck with knowing who to tag, because I think just about it's a tag that's been done by so many people. So if you're watching this and you haven't done it, I hope you do this tag, because it's an absolutely wonderful one. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. As usual, feel free to get in touch, and wherever you are, I hope things are good and you're having a good day, and take care. Goodbye for now.